How do you collect age data for your humanitarian or development program using KoboToolbox and ODK? There are 4 basic ways to collect age data when you're doing an assessment or survey. 1, you can have someone select the age category they fall into. Number 2, you can ask their age and select that age directly. 3, you can ask someone the year they were born and then calculate their age. Or 4, you can ask someone their exact birthday, including the day, month, and year. And this is the most precise. And those 4 methods of collecting age data go from the least precise to the most precise. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create survey questions in all 4 of those, using all 4 of those methods to collect age data. If you need to get templates for the XLSForm questionnaires on demographics, please visit the link below the video. If you're a humanitarian or development worker, I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel and leave a comment if you have another question about how to create specific survey questions. So you've opened up your XLSForm template, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk you through these 4 methods of collecting age data, and I'm going to start with collecting age data using categories or age categories. So when you collect age data using age categories, I'll quickly show you what that looks like in KoboToolbox. So do you give consent? Yes. Okay, so this first question says, what is your age? And then it will give a list of categories. You can say I'm between 30 and 39 or 15 to 17. You could have something that says if you select under 5, you can have a second question that pops up that says, you said the child's age is under 5. Please specify further how old they are. So you could then select maybe 12 to 24 months or something like that. But that's basically what an age category question looks like in KoboToolbox. So in your type column, you want to have a select one type of question referencing a choice list such as age category. I have a couple of different age category lists, so I've specified this one as EU. You want to give a name such as age category. One quick tip on naming your variables in the name column. Don't use things like question 1 or question 2. Try to use names like age category, something that will give you a clue when your data gets downloaded in the future when you're going to analyze it. This name is the name that the column of data is going to be named. So age category, and then in the label column, you want to put something like what is your age or respondent age. In the required column, put yes. And then over in the hint column, give a hint as to how the interviewer should ask that question. So ask the person their actual age, then the interviewer should put their age into the correct category, okay? So we're not asking maybe the respondent for them to tell us what age category they're in, we're just asking their age, but then the way we're recording it is we're putting it into age categories. If we go down to the Choices tab, you'll see that I have a couple of different lists of age categories. So there's age category EU, US, and CU5, which stands for children under 5. And you can see that the different labels here are slightly different categories. And then for children under 5, especially when you're running a nutrition or health program, you often need to break down a young child's age into maybe under 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 24 months, or 24 to 60 months. So that's just a really good thing to keep in mind when you are collecting data specifically for young children. When you make a name, so the name column in your choice lists, you don't want spaces in your name, and you probably don't want capitals or many special characters in there. So you can see that these are basically the same. So the variable names are very similar, but we don't have spaces, no capitals. So I've just simplified them a little bit in this column. So this column, this label, is what shows up in your ODK form or your KoboToolbox form. The name column, this is what shows up when you download your data for analysis later on. So you still want those names to be meaningful, the same as in your survey tab, but they just shouldn't have capitals and spaces and special characters. So going back to the survey tab, select one, age category EU. So it's referencing this choice list that's the EU choice list, okay, where it has under 5. Now what you can do is ask a follow-up question. So if they select under 5, for example, you might want to ask a second question to say, can you further specify how old your child under 5 is? So we're going to now say select one, age category, using the children under 5 list. The name will just say that this is the child under 5, their age. And the label is, you said the child's age is under 5. Okay, so this is a follow-up question. So please specify further how old they are. This is required. So if they got asked that question, they must give an answer. And the way that we build this question is under the relevant column. We want to make this relevant only if they answered child under 5 or under 5. So the formula you use is selected, and then you open bracket and you refer back to the name of the question you're basing this on. So age category. So age category is under 5. So if they select under 5, okay, so that's that under 5 we've grabbed from the choice list, and the name. So if they select under 5 from the name in the choice list, then it will ask this question. So then this question will be relevant. Okay, so that's the formula you put in there. If they select under 5 here, this question will pop up and it will ask them the children under 5 choice list. Okay, and that is basically how you would collect data in age categories. So let's go on to the second method of collecting data, age data. So that would be collecting age directly. So when you're in KoboToolbox and you want to collect age directly, it will just look something like this. How old are you? Please enter the age in years. And if they don't know how old they are, just have them estimate their age. Or if they don't want to tell you how old they are, please enter 999. Okay, so how old are you? Enter age in years. You might just say 29 years old, and that is it. That's the whole method. A couple of nuances. If you enter, say, 89, you might want to have a pop-up question that says, ooh, the age you entered was very old. You entered 89 years old. Is this correct? So if they entered maybe something over 80, you might just want to double check that they didn't hit something by mistake, hit a number by mistake. So if it's correct, just say yes and you can continue. And then the other thing you might want to do is just be able to have a number that they can enter that will just say my interviewee or respondent refused to answer. So if you enter 999, then you should be able to go on and it shouldn't stop you. So that's just a refuse to answer number. So that's what that looks like in KoboToolbox. So in this method, we're just going to ask them, how old are you? Enter age in years. Or you could put respondent age in years, or something like that. But how old are you? It is an integer type. You would name it something like age. And under the required column, you should have a yes or a true. In the hint, you can say something like, if they don't know how old they are, have them estimate their age. So it really depends on what community you're working on and what age range or what age group you're working with. Some people won't have an exact idea of how old they are, especially if there are poor birth records from when they were born. And then if they don't want to tell you how old they are, please enter 999. So you can make something like this that would indicate to you that somebody didn't want to answer or couldn't answer. And then when you see a 999 pop up in your data, then you know that's kind of a refuse to answer type of question, and you can delete it from your results. You can put a constraint on here. So when they enter their age, we need that to be more than 0. So somebody can't be under 0 years old. Okay. And we want that to be under a certain number. So the oldest person in the world, according to the World Guinness Book of Records, it was like 122 years old. So definitely no one you meet will be 200 years old. So that's just a very safe constraint, that we need that number to be between 0 and 200 at the max. And then you can put a constraint message that says your age must be more than 0 and it must be less than 200 years old. So as a follow-up question, if they enter an age that is very old, I like to ask a follow-up question, such as the age you entered was very old. You entered, now I've put a $ and an open curly bracket age and close curly bracket. So that refers back to whatever they entered in this question, okay? So I'm referring to this variable name. And instead of age, it will show them on the ODK Collect app, it will show them you entered 89 years old, for example. Is this correct? The required will be yes. And this, it will only be relevant, so this question will only show up if the age is over 80 and they didn't just enter 999. So if they entered 999, it meant they refused to answer. So it doesn't mean they're 999 years old. So we don't want this question showing up if they enter 999, but we do want this question entering up if they enter an age that's maybe over 80, as an example. Because 80 is getting quite old, and maybe they meant to enter 8 and they hit a 0, or maybe they hit 19, but then when they swiped forward, they hit a 0 and it ended up being 190 or something. So it would be less than the 200, but actually 190 years old is probably wrong. So this is just a double check question that if that age is actually getting quite old, we'll just double check, is this correct? Now the right answer to this question is yes, this is correct. If they want to say no, that's wrong, then the constraint message will show, please swipe back to the question on age and correct the answer, okay? So the constraint on that question is they have to answer, yes, this is correct. And that's basically how you would collect age directly. And that's the second method of collecting age. Now we're gonna go down to the third method, which is collecting birth year, okay? So this is a little bit more precise, that we are able to actually calculate their age for them. So in KoboToolbox, when you're collecting the birth year, this is what the question will look like. What year were you born? If they don't know their birth year, have them estimate it based on how old they are. And if they don't want to tell you their birth year, please enter 1900. So what year were you born? I was born in 1974. So that would be the typical question. Or answer, and then a little pop-up we have that is quite nice to have is your form will say this person was born in 1974. That means they are close to around 46 years old. If you enter something that's very close to being wrong, so maybe you enter something that's 1912, it should ask a pop-up question that says, this means that they're close to 108 years old. The birth year you entered means this person's very old, 108 years. You entered 1912 as the birth year. Is this correct? And if they say no, it will say, please swipe back to the question on birth year and correct your answer. Ooh, I actually meant to enter 1942. Which means they're 78 years old, and that might be the more correct answer. And maybe they just hit the number 1 mistakenly. The other thing you can do is enter 1900 if the person doesn't want to answer the question at all. And then there will be no pop-up or follow-up questions. So that is what collecting birth year looks like in KoboToolbox. So what year were you born? Is going to be the main question you would ask if you're collecting this type of question or this type of age data. You're going to make the type of question a date question, but on the date you're going to pop over here into the appearance column, and you want the appearance to be year. So they don't have to enter the day and the month. All they're going to enter is the year. Okay, so it's a date type question, but the appearance will just ask them what year they were born, okay? The name, will just name it birth year, and the required column, we always need that to be a yes. Under the hint, if they don't know their birth year, have them estimate it based on how old they are, and if they don't want to tell you their birth year, please enter 1900. So 1900 is kind of the indicator that they refused to answer your question. For the constraint, we want the dot equals 1900, okay, so refuse to answer, or It just needs to be greater than or equal to 200 years ago. So 1820, January 1st, okay? And it needs to be less than the year of today, so today's date, okay? So less than or equal to the date of today. So that constraint just makes sure that it's exactly what we talked about in the previous question. The age needs to be between 0 and 200 years old, okay? So the year needs to be between 1820 and today. And then the constraint message will just say, please enter a date that is in the past. Your year must not be more than 200 years ago. Okay, so that's the very basic date question. Then what you want to do is make a group of questions. So I've just begun a group saying the birth year is known. So if the birth year doesn't equal 1900, we can then calculate an age, okay? So if they have entered 1900, this group will just not appear. These questions will just not happen. So if they enter 1900, it means I refuse to answer this question. Don't ask me anymore about this age. But if they do know their birth year, so if it's 1993 or something, they do answer that question. The birth year is known. This relevance is met, so these questions will actually happen. So the next type of question you want to do is put in a calculate question, and we want to calculate the age. So I've just given it a name of age calculate. And in the calculation column, what you can do is start off with a basic calculation. Let me just make this a little bit wider so you can see what this looks like. Okay, so the basic calculation here in the middle is today minus the date of their birth year. Okay, so that will give you their basic age, except today and date within ODK come out as days. So today minus the date of their birth year will come out as some like 9,000 days old, which isn't really useful because we don't think of age in days. So put that in brackets, and then you put a div 365.25. So that's divided by 365.25 days per year. So that calculation will then give you the number of years old they are, but it will probably give you that in a decimal number. So you are 2.67 years old, which also doesn't make a lot of sense. We don't really think of our age in decimal points. So you can then put an int. So put int, which just means give me an integer, and put brackets around the whole equation, and that will then give you are 2 years old, or you're 19 years old. Now, because they don't give you the exact birthday, it might be off by a year, okay, because it will calculate as if your birthday is January 1st of that year. So it won't give you potentially the exact year or the exact age, but that's okay. That's kind of why it's a little bit less precise, and that's okay. So this is just the calculation you use to calculate their year or their age. And then you can just make a note question to present this back to the interviewer. So there will be a note, and you can name it anything, age calculate note. So this person was born in, and you can tell them the birth year. That means they are close to, and then whatever age was calculated, we're going to show it here in the label. So they are close to 19 years old. So they might be 18, they might be 19, but it will be close to their age. And then we do want to then ask that follow-up question once more. If they enter a year that makes them very, very old, we just want to double check that they entered that number correctly. So select one, yes or no, is the type of question. Give it a name. And then the birth year you entered means this person is very old, such as 89 years old. You entered, 1903 as the birth year. Is this correct? You will make this a required question. So in the required column, put yes. And then this will only be relevant if the calculated age is greater than 80. So this is referring back to this calculated question here. And the constraint is that this question must equal yes. So when you ask, is this correct? They must say, yes, this is correct. Please continue the survey. And if they say, no, it's wrong, then a constraint message will just pop up and say, please swipe back to the question on birth year and correct your answer. Okay? And we will then end that group of questions. And that is how you collect birth year using a date question to collect the year they were born. So let's then pop down to the very last or fourth method of collecting age, and that would be the most precise when you collect their exact birthday. In KoboToolbox, here is how you will collect the exact birth date. So you'll have a question that just asks the respondent directly, what was your birthday or what was your birth date? If they don't know, then have them estimate it based on how old they are. And if they don't want to tell you their birth year, please enter 1st of January 1900. So you can enter the birthday, so 2015, 02, 25. Okay, and it will just tell you this person is 5 years old. Or if you enter something like maybe 1915, it will say this person is 105 years old, and it will ask you a follow-up question that says, this is very old, is this correct? And you can say yes or no, which it will then tell you to go back and correct your answer. Or the other possibility is that you enter 1900, 1st of January, and it won't show you anything as a follow-up, because that basically means or tells the questionnaire the respondent has refused to answer that question. So those are the possible answers for this type of question, and that's how you ask it in KoboToolbox or ODK. So the type of question is going to be a date. Now in your appearance column, okay, so date, the appearance of that date, you can then say no calendar. Okay, and that is a little bit of a nicer way to enter the data rather than them having to swipe back and forth through a calendar. You can just have them choose the month, day, and year. Okay, so that's just an appearance that I recommend is really nice when you're collecting a date for a birthday. Give it a name such as birth date and enter the label as what was your birth date or what was your birthday. Make that a required question by entering yes, and then make a hint for the question. So if they don't know their birth date, have them estimate based on how old they are. Or if they don't want to tell you their birth year, please enter January 1st of 1900. Okay, so the constraint then is that it must equal 1900, January 1st, 1900, or the date has to be between 1820 and today. So it can't be in the future, and it can't be more than 200 years old. And then your constraint message goes there. Then, just like in the previous question, we just make a group of questions that if the birth date is known, so if they enter 1900, this group of questions won't appear, but if they enter any other date, then this group of questions will appear. We'll do another calculate question. So to make a calculate, give it a name, and then it's exactly the same formula as before. So you have today minus the birth date. You divide that by 365.25 to give you the number of years, and then you make the whole thing an integer so you don't end up with a decimal number of years. And then once you've calculated, so that calculates their age. Once you've calculated that, just pop up a note to the interviewer that says this person is, and then you put a $sign and curly brackets around the name of this calculate question. So this person is 75 years old, for example. And then you put a question. If that person is very old, then you want to double check that they entered that correctly. So select one question, yes or no. Confirm the birth date. So give it a proper name. And then the birth date you entered means this person is very old. So you can put in brackets, 85 years old. Is this correct? It is required. Only make it relevant if the age calculated here would be greater than 80. Your constraint is that they have to answer yes. When you say, is this age correct? You should say yes. If they say no, it's not correct, then you should give them a message that says, please swipe back to the question on birth date and correct your answer. So that is the last method of calculating or collecting age data, sorry. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Now, this template is available for download. So I've put the link in the video below. Go and download it if you just want to copy these questions and modify them to use in your own questionnaire. Hopefully that was helpful.
Whew, you made it all the way to the end. Great job. If this video was helpful, give it a like, share it, leave a comment if you have any other questions, and I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel to get updates when I produce other videos for humanitarian and development data managers. Until we meet again, bye!